And greetings, happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Aaron McIntyre, with Todd Erzin. We'll be joined here in just a matter of moments by our friend and colleague, Sara Gonzales, for the Deace Group. We are brought to you by our good friends over at First Cup Coffee Company, with a flavor for every freedom-loving American. If you want to try today, get a discount when you use my last name, Deace, as your promo code at firstcup.com. Promo code Deace, firstcup.com, promo code Deace. They make great coffee, and they share your values of faith, family, and freedom at firstcup.com, promo code Deace. And then also, if you like the show and you want to get some swag from this show, Sara's show, any of the shows that we do here at The Blaze, you can go to shopblazemedia.com today. You can get the brand new show logo they let us design earlier this year. You can see that there on the screen with the candle shining in the darkness. The pro-life hero, ironic Ruth Bader Ginsburg swag we came up with a couple of years ago because we couldn't have overturned Roe without her, and more. And all of our shows here at The Blaze are represented there as well. Use the promo code Steve10 for 10% off when you go to shopblazemedia.com, shopblazemedia.com, and use the code Steve10 to get 10% off your entire order at shopblazemedia.com. All right, coming up next hour of the show, it'll be your turn on a Feedback Friday, but first, it is time for the Deace Group. And there she is. Let's say hello to Sara. Good to have her back on the show. Let's get to it. Your weekly look at the week that was begins, as it always does, with issue 1. Bleep, Lord Nefarious says.
We are turning the page. Did you see her do that? Yeah. Can you do it with me? We are turning the page on Donald Trump.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
We are turning the page on Project 2025.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of... Yes. But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
We are turning the page to a new way forward.
Remember his number, 32. Today we got 32 days until the election. So 32 days. 32 days.
Forward to a future where everyone can live with freedom.
Guys are smarter than girls. You got some serious problems. That's what frustrates me. There are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. We could line all those guys up and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch that from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing that I said that.
Okay, and you have 2 daughters. When they come back home and they leave their Stanley Cups lying around, do you ever think about getting a post-birth abortion?
I have seen girls on the street walk up to men and be like, do you know where a tampon goes? Right. Do you know how many tampons we use? Do you even know how, do you know what a X or Y or Z is of a part of our, and they don't know the answer.
I was the first vice president or president to ever, in office, go to a reproductive health care clinic.
The platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control.
This, as an American,
let's talk about Kamala Harris.
Makes me really concerned.
Let's talk about Kamala Harris.
As a black lesbian who Donald Trump doesn't believe has genes as good as his, is he going to attempt to exterminate me
why do you
when
believe
he gets
that,
elected? Because he's damn near said it. That's why, baby. That's why.
Because he's,
okay, and I'm not going to be lectured by some white man who has no idea what he's talking about.
Just another day that ends in Y here. Another day in paradise during our cold civil war. Let's get to the opening question. Sarah, ladies first, and you're the guest, so you go first as well. What was the most awful thing that you just witnessed and why?
I'm going to go with Gretchen Whitmer. Look, every time I see Hillary Clinton, I want so badly to say Hillary Clinton because she just, I think, is the spawn of Satan. But Gretchen Whitmer, just so openly with this Instagram influencer, mocking communion, mocking Catholicism, mocking Christianity. They're doing this all in the open, guys. They're doing it publicly in front of you to mock you. They used to do this type of thing behind closed doors. Now they're very openly. This is a war between good and evil. This is a war, a spiritual war. And you see how brazen they are, how bold they are to just get up there and say, this is going to get millions of views and I'm going to make fun of your religion. They would never do that for any other religion. And here we are.
Indeed. Here we are. Todd, I'm sure you have some thoughts on that and more. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's mine. The laugh track there. It's not just about the Eucharist. It's about abortion. It's funny to them. Last night at a speaking engagement for Mike Pike, who you saw on the show earlier this week, one thing I made abundantly clear to the people, a great turnout, and I'm trying to get them to understand what this is about. It's not just any election. And I didn't reference this specifically, but this is the kind of stuff I was talking about generally. And I said, this is what you have to understand. This is not just shirts versus skins and one person goes home and kind of licks their wounds and regroups. No, if these people win, they hate you. They want to step on your throat. They want to hurt you, and they will laugh while doing it. They enjoy it. It is fun for them. And they roll tape on that. Steve's career, to some extent, has been warning you of that very fact. But it's been theoretical to some extent. It's been an application of what we know as Christians about the fallen state of human. Now, the enemy, nefarious style, writing a book, just telling you, this is what we're doing. And we don't, not only do you think you can stop us, we don't think you want to. We think you're too safe, we're too dumb, you're too comfortable. So here we come. It's time to ask yourself, Dr. Jones, what do you believe?
Aaron, and by the way, real quick on that, I should mention, according to my oldest daughter, this is apparently a TikTok trend. I mean, I wouldn't know, I try to avoid it as much as possible. But it's apparently a TikTok trend. And the fact
is it always
that
with Doritos?
Yeah. Apparently this thing where you pretend to deliver a Doritos-like communion is a TikTok trend. I mean, the idea that 30 days out, 20 days out from an election, you would think, let's roll this out here and just rub people's noses in it as a quote-unquote joke is just incredulous to me.
Well, to be fair,
only confirms what you just said, Todd.
To be fair, now that you say that, maybe it's just more of an innocent thing because, as we know, usually it's only good things that come out of TikTok, right?
Correct. Indeed. Yes. All right, Aaron, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I simultaneously find myself feeling old and weird. I'm like Abe Simpson. I used to be with it, then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. That's kind of what I feel like right now. Let's do the dishonorable mention first at the very end. Let's not overlook the normalization of just blatant racism that you saw there at the very end. I'm not going to be lectured to by what? A white man? Let's not overlook that. But the glib nature, I think we're going to go for a trifecta here. The glib nature of talking about murder, just murder of innocence, that you saw Gretchen Whitmer and that podcast host, that's just unabashed, straight from the pit of hell, evil. It just is. Mm-hmm. The very fact that it barely raises our eyebrows anymore. I'm saying this more and more often. I can't tell if it's because maybe I'm a broken record or hell is a broken record right now or just playing the hits over and over again. But the very fact that it barely raises our eyebrows, and maybe I'll just speak for myself, that they can just laugh off post-birth abortion. Ha ha ha, funny joke. That's not actually happening. That is a sad commentary in and of itself. That's just, speaking of normalization, that's just, haha, that's a funny joke now. That it's not confined to some dank, just rotten place in our culture. That is just out in the open now. That is a sad commentary. And we just come to expect that from the left. And by the way, this is in the backdrop of Do No Harm putting out that database of all of the hospitals who have performed so-called gender-changing surgery. See that as meatball surgeries in the name of gender and chemical castration. That was just this week. And nobody's surprised. What can you say? And if Todd is absolutely right, and he puts out this trap on Twitter. If Donald Trump loses, it's going to be because of Christians. It's going to be one way because Donald Trump gave too many Christians the excuse one way or another not to vote for him, or is because too many Christians are going down the road of David French.
That's exactly right.
That's just the reality here. But I don't know how you can see this on a week in and week out basis and not have some reaction to say we have to buy ourselves more time because time is running out.
Let's get to the exit question on that note. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds Lindsey Graham is doing anything at all to help the people struggling with Helene in his native South Carolina, and 10 being the odds he's a closeted homosexual globalist cuck. Rank this week's level of total depravity. Todd.
10.
Sarah.
10.
Aaron.
Back to a 10.
Before we move on, a word about our friends over at Relief Factor. If you are struggling with chronic pain, that's probably because you got too much inflammation in your joints. That is the leading cause for those symptoms of that achiness, soreness, and stiffness that just won't go away. Now, we're not guaranteeing you anything, but over the years, about 70% of the over 1 million people who have tried the 3-week quick start at Relief Factor have seen such great results. They have stuck with the product long term. Now, what is it? It's a supplement, drug-free, but created by doctors who can prescribe drugs, who got tired of just writing scripts for painkillers that masked the pain but didn't actually go after the causes of it. So they wanted to come up with something that would do that, and that something is Relief Factor. Again, no guarantee here it's going to work, but what do you got to lose for 70% odds for just $20 that it will? So why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your pain in 3 weeks or less when you go to relieffactor.com. It's just $20 for the 3-week quick start. Get the 3-week quick start at relieffactor.com. Let's get to issue 2. Something wicked this way comes.
A new Pew poll of the general election shows Kamala Harris clinging to a 1-point lead over Donald Trump, 48 to 47%. New Emerson polling of swing states this week. Emerson was one of the best pollsters in 2020. Shows Donald Trump leading in Arizona, Georgia, tied in Michigan, leading in North Carolina, behind by 1 in Nevada, leading in Pennsylvania, and tied in Wisconsin. In the Real Clear Politics aggregate of betting markets for this election, Donald Trump leads by nearly 10 points. And now this week, Kamala Harris is all over the place, all over your screens after attempting to run a Joe Biden-esque basement campaign. And yet, amidst this backdrop, 2022 still happened.
So I think it's clear we could sit here, and with all the various bipolar metrics out there and debate to what extent that the Trump campaign has the momentum now. But I would just base it on nothing more before I even looked at data on you are not exposing this woman to the level that you currently are if you are the Democratic Party. Unless you were concerned. I mean, we know, as Aaron noted in his opening there, and we've already seen, they will run basement campaigns. They're fine doing that. And they ran a basement campaign here for 6 weeks. So they're not putting her out there to flash her 57 IQ because they think they're going to coast here. So there's some form of momentum on the Trump side. What it is, how much it is, I'll tell you, I wish we are unfortunately voting in many places now, but like the majority of the American people who are going to vote, I wish the election was this week, because they're not just going to sit here, guys, for the next 3 weeks and say, by golly, we almost got him, and just take an L. They're not just going to sit here and take an L. All right. So I want you guys. So I want to reiterate a phone call I received about 3 months ago from former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. And he called me up on a Saturday and said, hey, I'm canvassing some of the smarter people I know. And I'm like, well, you got way down your list to call me. And I want to know, I'm trying to figure out what will they poll on us in this next election right now that we down the stretch that we cannot foresee, whether it's the censoring of a Hunter Biden laptop or a Comey letter that we do get to see. He said, what is it that we can't foresee right now? Give me a black swan. Okay. And this is their play at the end. And he goes, I don't want you to think about it. I want your instant reaction. And I thought about it for like a minute or two. And I said, boots on the ground in Ukraine. Because that would put Trump in a position in kind of a no-win scenario for him. I mean, you have for his highest profile supporter right now. If it's not Elon Musk, it's Tucker Carlson, right? And that's his pet issue is Ukraine. And it would clearly, if Trump says we're not going to join in the mighty defense of Ukraine, if we're not going to join in that, then that puts him at odds with the Nikki Haley, Marco Rubio, forever war wing of his party. If he joins in it, that puts him at odds with some of his own his Native America First wing. And so that's what I came up with as a play I thought they could make down the stretch here to come up with something that they're completely united on, but would divide Trump with his own electorate. Okay. Now, we had this conversation, admittedly, to be fair, about a week or two before they started trying to kill him. Okay. So, now that that's on the table, I suppose we could all just sit here and say they'll just keep trying to kill him, Steve. So let's take that off the table because that's the obvious one. Asked and answered, Your Honor. All right. So the floor is open. Okay. We all know they're not just going to sit here and take an L for the next 3 weeks. We are not lucky enough to get them to continue to put out cringy, fake masculine ads like the one that they brought out on TikTok this morning that lowered everyone's T level, including Sarah's when she watched. Okay, so we know that they're not just going to run cringy ads and sit there and take an L. We know they're going to roll out with something here. All right, so aside from just continuing to try and kill him, what? Floor is open. What is it? What's the play?
I would say that, number one, I think that they're going to continue to try their, fortification mechanisms that worked so well the last go around, because the fact of the matter is the RNC completely and totally botched this. They had, 3.5 years to file lawsuits that they waited. Now, of course, Laura Trump didn't take over until when did Ronna McDaniel step down? I'm sorry, Ronna Romney McDaniel. When did she step down? So they haven't had much time, but the RNC has totally botched this. These states like Michigan and these other states that are taking voter rolls of dead people. We have all sorts of election integrity problems in all of these states that we have to win. And the RNC ran out the clock before they started filing all these lawsuits. So I think that there are a lot of fortification mechanisms that are being talked about and put into place. But I would say, and I don't disagree with you about the potential boots on the ground in Ukraine, some sort of foreign conflict amped up because they know that will make it more difficult for Donald Trump to get elected. But I would also say, Steve, there's only so much that they can do right now. There's only so much that they can trot her out to go drink a beer with Colbert and seem relatable. There's only so many softball interviews that she can do with Bill Whitaker, but don't worry that she screws up because they're just going to re-edit the already edited parts that you actually see. She's just really bad at this. And the problem is that they back themselves into this corner in the sense that they have this campaign who is literally admitting to Americans that things are bad right now. They're admitting to Americans that groceries cost more, that gas costs more, that, Americans are feeling pain right now. They're admitting that while she is second in command of this entire thing, that things are bad, but they're also trying to sell Americans on the fact that she is the one to solve all the problems, while also saying that her policies will be just like Joe Biden. You saw it in the intro montage. She was given an off-ramp. Sunny Hostin on The View gave this woman an off-ramp and said, what would you do differently than Joe Biden? Here, take it. And she chose not to. And so I just think that she's been backed into this corner where, regardless of what they try, she's just so bad at this. I just don't know what it could be that would actually convince Americans that she would be the pick. And I will also add to this too, Steve. I keep wondering, with Joe Biden clearly trying to stick it to her in all sorts of subtle and sometimes not so subtle ways, I keep waiting for this October surprise. And I keep wondering, is it going to come from Joe Biden? Because he seems to be amping up how he's digging at her. He's talking about how great DeSantis is after she's just slammed him for being irresponsible and selfish. I mean, he's doing these things seemingly intentionally. And you got to believe that he has a whole lot of dirt on this woman. Clearly, he has a grudge to hold. And I just keep wondering, is the October surprise going to come from him?
Yeah, we spent some time earlier this week talking about the Biden angle as well. The DeSantis stuff, oh no, she actually was with me on every major decision we ever made and that kind of stuff. Yes. Real quick, earlier this year, you went up to Michigan and did a documentary, a Blaze original here for the network. And after I viewed it, I just now, in the corner of this man cave, actually, it took me months. I just now got the bloodstains out of the carpet. After I watched your Blaze original, I was self-cutting. I was self-harming, like right over there by the Christmas story leg lamp. I was self-harming, in fact. And so can you just reiterate, because Trump is polling strong right now in the state of Michigan, but I have just, after watching your documentary, just completely written it off. So can you just reiterate what you found there?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I want to preface this with, I would never say anything that I want to discourage people from going out and voting. So please vote. However, the state of Michigan is gone. The state of Michigan, George Soros has worked very hard with his Secretary of State project, installing these secretaries of state, one of whom is Jocelyn Benson in the state of Michigan. She has made it impossible for you guys in the state of Michigan to have a clean election. It is impossible. They are keeping dead voters on the rolls on purpose. They are making it they are intentionally making it extremely difficult to remove voters who they know don't live there anymore, are deceased. They are making it. They have a constitutional right now in the state of Michigan to mail in ballots. They are designing the system. Forget the voting machines, right? Forget the hacking and all sorts of stuff that people talked about for a whole lot of years. They are doing it right in front of your eyes, and they are legalizing it in many ways. They're making it legal for them to cheat. And so I believe that Donald Trump will win Michigan. I don't believe he will win Michigan.
Todd and Aaron, what's the play? What do you guys think?
I think my working hypothesis right now, or at least one of them, to explain kind of where we are, is that we've had the better part of a decade, the vastly better part of a decade, of Donald Trump withstanding scandals, both real and imagined, starting with grab him by the hoo-ha, Russia, Stormy Daniels, the very good Ukraine call, lawfare when he was out of office, COVID. We have reached a point now, they have reached a point now where they've reached their ceiling of definition of Donald Trump, meaning that they have absolutely exhausted reasons to vote against the guy, and he's still standing. They are in the position now where they have to give reasons to vote for you. And when you have a candidate like Kamala Harris, who, despite the fact that she was vice president, I still believe has a name ID problem to some extent, and you get her out there and you're trotting her out there and she's not it. I think this really is a personalities election. I do believe so. I mean, it is a trial of the American people more than anything else, but when you get down to the nitty gritty, I think people she's not, just kind of a meh reaction to her, outside of the people who are going to vote Democrat no matter what. They have reached their max ceiling on defining Donald Trump, and he's still standing. And so they have a problem now where they have to come up with a candidate who is able to be voted for. And I just don't think
they're going to win on the merits is what you're saying.
I don't think that they have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that sounds like you and Sarah kind of have a similar, different perspectives, but a similar conclusion. Todd, what do you think?
Well, like the first answer, I'm tracking almost exactly with Sarah. I don't think everything is too heavy a lift for Kamala. Whatever surprise comes, organic or otherwise, can she pull it off? I think the answer is no. So the Democrats smartly would flip the script. I'm totally with Sarah. Where are Republicans bad and proven to be bad? And it is at this lawfare stuff. It was terrible in 2020, whether they were inept or they actually were hoping Trump loses, any number of reasons. They would be smart to reset that and go all in, because the simple fact is when they talk about Trump is the guy who wants to end democracy, in their heart of hearts, that's what they want to do. So they're going to cheat, steal, whatever, and including everything they did before. Plus, I think there's going to be interference at polling places this time around. Just flat out, like abusing people, not letting them get in line. I think that stuff is going to happen. So either they get their way and they win again, or they do what they finally wanted to do all along. They disrupt democracy to such an extent that we can't recover. Remember, this is where think like the Joker. Heath Ledger's Joker.
Exactly.
I want you to do it. I want you to do it. That's their mindset. Or I don't believe in anything. That's their mindset too. They just are trying to figure out if now is the time that they can pull it off. But chaos and destruction is where they're at. Why wouldn't they do the lawfare again? We were terrible at it last time. Sarah's exactly right.
You know, you've got Axios this morning detailing, and this is not news.
I'm looking at that piece right now.
Jamie Raskin, Democrat. This is not new. He said this, I think, a couple of months ago, just saying, hey, maybe we will, maybe we won't certify the election.
Yes.
I wonder if they're actually more comfortable just letting this thing go the next 3 weeks, and then in the shadows trying to blow it up in the intervening weeks between Election Day and certification day. I wonder if they're more comfortable doing that than trying to win it.
They told us 3 weeks ago, we're still going to be counting ballots for days and days and days. That's the play. They know it's nefarious. Here's the book. You're not going to do anything about it, are you?
By the way, Raskin was one of the Democrats that voted against the Trump electors in January of 2017.
Yep.
After the certifying that election after the 2016 results as well. All right, let's get to the exit question. What's the best advice you would give the Trump campaign down the stretch here, Todd?
The best advice, I'm just going to quote the immortal Steve Deace, what he said yesterday. Keep going on these shows, mass appeal. Definitely don't go.
You mean these long form podcasts where you can actually converse?
Definitely don't go on that chick that got her start on Barstool. Don't go on My Daddy thing or anything like that. But a relatively diverse set of conversations, and keep doing that. Steve, you nailed that yesterday. I can't do better than that.
Sarah?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, they keep trying to dehumanize him. Continue humanizing this man. Yep. Continue reminding everyone that he is not the devil. He is not literally Hitler. He is not all of these things that you hear from the left 24/7. This is a father. This is a grandfather. This is someone with a sense of humor. This is someone who is thoughtful. And the more that they can do that while also stay on message, remind people of the pain that they are living in right now. And this is something that goes back to, any sort of good sales training that you have, because this is what you're doing, right? You're trying to sell someone on voting for you. Any good sales training that you have will include you have to convince people of their pain. They have to feel the pain in order to be convinced to buy your product, to vote for you, whatever the case may be. So if we can humanize him while also selling people, reminding people of their pain, reminding them that they can't raise children in this climate, that their paychecks go way less. The more that you can remind people, their groceries are costing more. Their kids aren't safe. They could be killed by an illegal immigrant. Remind people of their pain and can continue humanizing him. And I think that you're going to be successful.
Yep. Echo that, humanize him, and then encapsulate as much as you can J.D. Vance's debate strategy, which is tying you had 3.5 years, 4 years to do this. Why didn't you do that? Tie it around their necks constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I agree with that. I think this has been a great conversation so far, but I am very much looking forward to where we are going when we come back here in a few minutes. Because this week we have, the debate over the last few years, what's a woman? Boy, howdy. This week we had that debate take center stage with two diametrically, irreconcilable answers to that question. And we will discuss that and more next. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, and folks, we have something to offer you today, and it is completely free. Our friends over at Hillsdale, the Great American College, with a huge and effective educational outreach effort on behalf of liberty, they are giving away free copies of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence before the November election. Hillsdale's immediate goal is to put a pocket Constitution in the hands of 1 million Americans who don't have one. And if you have one already, you can order one for a young person you know who does not. But the offer only for a limited time. So claim your free pocket-sized Constitution today at Deace for, the preposition, not the number, F-O-R, DeaceForHillsdale.com. That's DeaceForHillsdale.com to have a free copy mailed to you. Visit DeaceForHillsdale.com right now. Complete a simple form. They'll put it in the mail to you with free shipping. Again, the offer expires soon. Claim your free pocket Constitution today at DeaceForHillsdale.com. All right, let's get back to our weekly look at the week that was as we welcome back our good friend and colleague, Sara Gonzales from here at The Blaze. Todd and Aaron here with us as well. Next hour, it'll be your turn with Feedback Friday, but now it is the turn of issue 3. Which way, Western woman?
Oh, the duality of woman. This week, Kamala Harris went on the raunchy sex podcast, Call Her Daddy, to talk about stuff.
I want to pose this question more to you and the Daddy Gang, but one of the biggest conversations in this year's election revolves around a woman's body.
Yep.
I want to take a moment, and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision?
I know what you're going to ask.
About a man's body.
No.
Is there any law?
No.
Also this week, the group XXXY Athletics released this stunning new ad featuring a number of girls calling out Nike for supporting dudes who feel pretty, ruining female sports.
Dear Nike.
Dear Nike.
Dear Nike.
Why won't you stand up for me? Why won't you stand up for me? Why won't you?
Why do you claim to support women and girls?
Yet when we need you most, you remain silent.
Today, males are claiming our identity,
our sports,
our spaces.
Men and boys are stealing opportunities, medals,
trophies,
and our future.
And it's not fair or just.
In fact, it's often dangerous. Yet you refuse to use your platform to stand up.
You say you're for social justice and progress.
So why do you allow men's rights to come before ours?
See, with a big platform
comes an even bigger responsibility.
You have a chance to do the right thing,
not just do the easy thing.
So we're asking you, Nike.
So we're asking you, Nike.
So we're asking you, Nike.
As the biggest voice in all of sports.
Will you stand up for me? Will you stand up for me? Will you stand up for me?
Will you stand up for me? Will you?
Will you?
Will you just do it?
So you're right. I mean, I can't think of any laws that specifically tell men what they can and cannot do with their bodies, you know, except for the minute we turn 18, we have to go down to the courthouse and register to one day be drafted into someone's adventurous war on behalf of the World Economic Forum or, Middle East adventurism and die for absolutely nothing. I mean, other than that, I can't think of anything that specifically tells men what they can do with their body. I can't think of anything.
I'm not trying to be glib. Aren't most laws governing what we can and can't do with our bodies?
Correct. I mean, I can't just, take my hands and steal things from you. I mean, we cannot rape one another. We can't murder one another. I mean, essentially every law. This is just how stupid and vapid this is. Every law is a restriction of what you can and cannot do with your body. Every single law is. Other than all the laws, we don't have any other laws that say what you can and cannot do with your body, other than all of the laws, all of them. So let's paint the picture. Aaron, you did a great job. On one hand, we have. I didn't even know this thing existed until this week, but apparently it's got a massive audience, and its target message is to tell women to go out there and sexually satisfy as many men that will never care about them and use them as possible. That's essentially its target message, I guess. Okay. And then on the other hand, you have women of all ages asking the most powerful brand in all of American sport, Nike, hey, how much longer are you going to let dudes take opportunities away from us? I mean, to me, these are divergent paths for women that are absolutely not reconcilable on any level whatsoever. So that begs the question then, and Sara, since you're the only actual woman here, which way, Western woman? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to be as optimistic as possible because I am. I feel like there is a cultural shift happening, but I do just want to point out we've had depraved people. We've had promiscuous people. We've had, this type of women like Alex Cooper, who hosts that Call Her Daddy podcast. We've had people like that. We grew up with people like that, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is, instead of having these conversations behind closed doors like they used to, they've been given this platform on everyone's phones, on everyone's computers, every place you turn, that it's more consumable now and you can profit from it. And so I want to be clear here. These types of people have always existed. They just have a microphone. And so when you go back to the 1950s, promiscuity obviously was very much counterculture. Getting married, having children, raising those children into productive members of society while also respecting and acknowledging gender roles obviously was the dominant culture. And as time went on, feminists were able to trick, women into thinking they needed to be a girl boss and they didn't need to get married. They're a strong, independent woman. They don't need no man. And why do you need to have kids? They're just inconvenient. And so that obviously has led to the crisis that we're in now, where you have record numbers of miserable, mentally ill women because they are not living their natural roles. And so I do think that they took culture. We've got to accept that. We are the counterculture now. Okay. Protecting women from men invading their private spaces is counterculture now. Trying to protect children from chopping off healthy body parts is the counterculture now. The feminists did a very, very good job of taking the culture, but culture is a pendulum. And I do believe that, with this promo that you just saw urging Nike to save women's sports, to protect women in sports, to help us acknowledge that women are women and men are men and we shouldn't be putting our young girls in danger. I do think that this is on the rise. I think we are about to see a shift take place, that we're going to take it back, because you can only deny your natural role for so long. These women are growing up. They're trying to be the girl boss. They're not having kids and they're finding themselves absolutely 100% miserable because that's not the way that God designed us to be. And so I do see a shift. I do think that it is going to take all of us. And it is, we are going to all have to participate in shifting this. But look at how they shifted it in the first place. We are counterculture, accept it, and let's do what we can to move it back in the right direction.
Amen. Todd, you've had some role in the development of not one, not two, not three, but four women yourself. So I'm curious to get your perspective on this and what Sara said.
I have indeed dabbled. Yeah. Listen, here's the thing. Those girls in the Nike commercial, this is so much bigger than sports. They're saying just like, this is ours. But other than that, after that, what you will have is freedom. This is ours. But all those girls on there, you have no idea. 1 kid, 4 kids, doctor, housewife. You do you. There's real freedom there. The other picture, what the lie about freedom, sexual promiscuity. Well, to Sarah's point about that's always existed, true. Go back, somebody in the news these days, it's important to bring this up. One of the vanguards of that was Howard Stern. Pornographic sexual freedom for everybody. Where does that go? It doesn't go to freedom. It goes to exactly where Howard Stern is now. A neurotic, shut in during COVID, a tyrant now who's against free speech. That's where all of that goes. So you either have genuine freedom for women and everybody else, or you have absolute tyranny for women and for everybody else. There is so much more going on than just playing sports and maybe a little promiscuous sex while I'm young and then I'll grow up and no. This is about reality itself. This is about the abilities to stay in a society. This is ground zero of a culture.
The point you made there with Howard Stern, brother, that's cash money, homie. Okay. The idea that the most conquest that we can get, the most women at our beck and call that we can get, and that these are the expressions of masculinity, and then you see how his life has turned out. I mean, he's a Karen with a penis, basically. I mean, he didn't leave his home for like 2 years. Okay, he's completely emasculated himself, but he's not alone. How about all those iconoclastic rock stars we grew up with, right? And they're scantily clad music video vixens, and the Marlboro Red dangling from the side of their mouth as they lit their guitars on fire with their long guitar solos and the hair that never saw a cream rinse. Okay, and they were the badasses that all the women swooned over. I need you to give me. You need to show your Vax card to get into my reunion tour, right? Same thing. Same exact thing. So that was phenomenal, Todd. Aaron, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about how this is not a conversation up here. It's really a conversation down here. We're having a conversation about what is the purpose of life for half of civilization, basically. That's the real conversation we're having here, because we've had these ad nauseum with men, and it's apropos as well. There's either going to be a subscription to. It seems like the choices young men are given. You have an enrollment in Andrew Tate's Genghis Khan School of Masculinity, which is basically conquer everything in your path, spread your seed as far and wide as you possibly can. Or you're given the other false choice, which is Mike Pence's Pious Eunuch University, which is just completely devoid of any actually action on the battlefield. Women, I think, are also given a similar false choice. It's either, I'm going to be a girl boss climbing the corporate ladder, or I'm just going to be kind of the other side of the Genghis Khan School of Masculinity, which is I'm just going to live as just a pleasure-seeking lech, basically. That's kind of the message of the Call Her Daddy podcast. There has to be a narrow road, if you will. There's a narrow road. And these conversations, they have impacts up here, but they start down here. And it's just a result, a sorry fruit of generations of deep-seated feminism. And on this show, we're always going to lay the responsibility at the men. And it's because the men, for generations, have not actually attempted to lead in their homes, first and foremost, in their lives, even before that. And so I'm kind of with Sarah. I am cautiously optimistic. There are some, it's not enough yet, but even in some higher places, you have seen people speak out on this issue. You look at Kirk Herbstreit, who is the face of college football, doing the same thing just before the start of the college football season. If guys like him just say, I don't give a poop what you think about me, this is what's right and this is what's wrong, that's the kind of attitude that it's going to take, not only in positions of his type of power, but in positions of, hey, I'm just a dad and I've got kids in school. This is what's right, this is what's wrong. That's what it's going to take at the end of the day. And I am cautiously optimistic that on this issue, we are starting to make some hay, a little bit of hay, and it's going to require a lot more. But I am cautiously optimistic.
All right, let's get to the exit question. The average Trump female gender gap in his previous two presidential runs was losing women by an average of 14 points. He lost them by 13 in 2016. He lost them by 15 in 2020. So that's where you get the average of 14. In 2024, do you think Trump's gender gap with women will be over or under that? Aaron.
Under. Just slightly.
Todd.
Same, under but narrowly.
Sarah.
I agree. Under but narrowly. There are only so many mentally ill suburban women that can continue voting for policies that devastate their families.
How much wine can these women drink, Sarah? Okay.
Well, I wouldn't know that from personal experience. Don't look at me.
Let's get to the kicker topic, and just give me a name because we're short on time. Give us a good role model example for the modern Western woman to emulate, Sarah.
I'll give you a quick, because it's not a name, okay? It's moms in every single local community who, in the absence of male leadership, are showing up to city council meetings, to school board meetings, and speaking out and fighting for their children. They are all around us. There are so many of them, and I just wanted to take a moment to recognize them.
Amen. Todd?
There's a 20-something-year-old woman going viral, I don't know her name, and talking about the baby that she was carrying, and it was going to die, almost certainly. And instead of aborting it, she said, I'm going to keep it in the safest place possible. Why would I ever torture it when it's already had such a hard life? It's stunning.
I listened to more of that conversation, and my heart just breaks for her. But it's also joy, because that's a real woman right there.
Yes.
And I think she was actually a teen mom who experienced that. I wasn't going to give a big name either, kind of along the lines of what Sarah was saying, but just differently. Go to church and find a 50 or 60-something-year-old woman with a family who loved that life. Go emulate that woman. Go make her your role model.
It's a great answer, too. All right, let's get to predictions. Aaron, I'll let you go first.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Iowa loses tomorrow strictly because Steve is going to be in the audience wearing Hawkeye gear. That's the only reason.
Oh, gosh, that's good. I found out, by the way, you guys are striping out the stadium. I had the wrong color, so we had to run out and get myself. I'm actually much more comfortable wearing the gold, if you know what I'm saying. I've worn that color a lot. Okay, so I'm a little bit more comfortable wearing that one. Todd?
Yeah. Steve is not the folk hero we need, but he is the folk hero we deserve. That's clearly true. There is going to be a Democrat of some popular nature, think Taylor Swift. It doesn't necessarily have to be that big, but big enough that is going to turn on Kamala Democrats and say they're going to vote for Donald Trump. And it's going to be like a yo moment.
Okay. Sarah, we've got a minute. Go ahead.
I'm going to predict, you guys touched on it earlier, Donald Trump wins the White House, and the same people who we have heard deny that there's any sort of election fraud or any, crazy stuff taking place for the last 4 years, they've been saying that, will be the same people that refuse to certify the election. And I would just like to ask that they get treated like the dangerous insurrectionists that they are.
I'm in.
I'm going to predict that just as Reagan's election freed the hostages, if Trump is elected, there will be a ceasefire in Ukraine, either before or immediately upon him taking office. That's what I think. I'm going to make that prediction. Sarah, good to see you as always. Great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very, very welcome, and thank you as well. And when we come back, it'll be time to say thank you to you because it will be Feedback Friday. Let me take a little peek here at what is lined up here. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. Okay. The very first note we're going to get, guys, about what's happening in the modern American church. The very first note. So we are coming out of the gate swinging this week on a Feedback Friday. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre, and you are you. And you can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Just email us there, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And if you subscribe to the podcast, well, if you don't, first of all, hit subscribe or follow on iTunes. If you do subscribe, thank you. If you haven't yet done so, leave us a 5-star review. All of you can do that for us right now, in fact, on the podcast platform of your preference. And we appreciate each and every one of you that have done that for us. So thank you. Let's keep those coming. They help to appease. They make the right offering to those fickle gods of algorithm. So we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Also appreciate our friends over at Raycon. If you are looking for noise cancellation, noise reduction earbuds, these are the best I've ever tried. Their everyday earbuds are made to make your everyday just a little easier. And every time they update the product, like they did recently, they add new features to make them even easier to use. For example, the everyday earbuds now feature a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with 2 devices at once. There's also active noise cancellation, which makes activities like long flights much easier, if you ask me. And as a bonus, Raycon's everyday earbuds are available in a variety of vibrant colors to complement any and all skin tones. You know me, I'm kind of a guy that likes blue. All right, so please, folks, give them a shot, especially with their new quick charge function. 10 minutes of charging yields you 90 minutes of battery. Guys, Lindsey Graham doesn't even recharge that fast. All right. So new multi-point connectivity awareness mode, active noise cancellation, 3 customizable sound styles. You can weatherproof and or sweat resist as well. They're the best. That's why every time someone takes advantage of our promo code, they always come back and say thank you. These are awesome. So go to BuyRaycon, RAYCON, BuyRaycon.com/Steve today and get 25% or get 20 to 50% off. Wow, they updated that. I need to read that copy because I didn't think that was true at first. But yeah, that's incredible. 20 to 50% off state or site-wide. I mean, I'm flabbergasted. That's incredible savings. All right. So you can't beat it. BuyRaycon.com/Steve. BuyRaycon, RAYCON as in Nancy. BuyRaycon.com/Steve. Get 20 to 50% off site-wide today. All right, quick audible on what we're going to come out with on Feedback Friday, because Barb here, let me just read the note and get you guys' reaction. Barb G says, here are the October surprises. Kamala performs a public abortion. Tim Walz has a baby.
Sure.
Man, that's kind of where we are, right? Like, that's not considered to be outrageous, or is it even parody? I mean, that's kind of where we are. Yeah.
No, I'm like, what's your point, Barb?
So I did appreciate the snark there, Bob. So good job out of you. All right, let's get started with Feedback Friday, man. Are you guys ready for this?
Okay.
I don't think so.
You're not. But it's not going to surprise you either. Okay. I received this note from Erin. She writes, I work at a church in a state where we have one of the abortion amendments on the ballot this November. I asked the pastor if we could put out vote no signs and hand out information about the amendment at church. He said, yes, enthusiastically. Great, I thought. Then my campus pastor spoke to the executive pastor, his boss, about it, and I was told that we have to remove the signs. The signs aren't offensive in any way. They don't endorse any candidate or party. They don't even have the word abortion on the sign. It's just a white sign that says to vote no on the amendment on it. They are well aware that they are within their rights to encourage a no vote on this amendment without losing their 501c3. So that's not the issue here. The pastors are saying they don't want the, quote, the lost to be dissuaded from visiting our church because we have those signs outside. He also stated that the signs wouldn't make a difference or change anyone's mind on the issue. It would just keep the lost from finding Jesus. The signs were only out for 2 weeks and I had to remove them. I am disgusted and disappointed with my church now. Am I wrong?
I hate this.
I am actually going to let you guys have the first crack at this.
I hate this with every fiber of my being. I knew
that you would.
I hate this. Like, HATE, so everyone knows what I'm talking about. Hate. Like, I hate this.
Like a biblical level of
biblical
loathing.
level, yes, of hatred. This is why we lost the culture. You're soft-headed, probably wears khakis, sweater vested. This is the shtick. We have to hide our light under a bushel so that other people can shine their light, come to the light. What the hell is this? And I mean hell like capital H is this. We can't rely on the Holy Spirit to do its job because we just are so special and we can do it so much better. And what really bothers me is because it's one of those things, like I said, it's not exactly analogous. I'm not surprised by this, but when you see the sausage made, it's still shocking.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the attempt on Trump's life. Not surprised, but still shocking to see it go down. Shocking to hear an account like this. There are just, I'm convinced, some people who claim the name of Christ, who even on the train to the camps are still going to be saying some level of mantra of don't talk about the gospel around the guards because it might be offensive to them. I'm just convinced that there is that level of self-deluded wimp coward out there. That like cowardice is the highest virtue. to them. Who's cast into the lake of fire first?
Cowards.
Yeah.
Jesus says in Revelation, cowards go into the lake of fire first. Pardon me.
I'm so unsurprised by this. And I'm filled with every bit of malevolence for it, as Aaron is, but this is another day that ends in why.
These churches are legion.
These churches are legions, and it's a yin-yang relationship. Might as well use non-Christian religious parallelisms to what's going on here, because that pastor in his legion, but the folks pulling up to that church, that's what people want at church. They want the Oprah show. They want the Oprah show too.
That is correct.
And these things reinforce each other. And having been there myself, and then I raise my hand, point of order. Like, it's my experience within Catholic Church governance, Catholic school, and public school over in Colorado. A lot of similarities. Just alone, maybe one or two other people. And everybody else saying, we kind of agree. We kind of see his point. But, why do we have to be that way? Why do we have to do things that... This is just... It's the comfort thing. And until we shatter that idol corporately, and every single one of us is on the hook for that, and it has to come in all kinds of different ways, we're going to just keep... The rest of our career is going to be reading letters like this. That's not church. And it's not just it's not just an election year issue or anything like that. That's a codicil of the larger issue. What is the whole point of this thing? And when Aaron says, hiding your light under the bushel basket to shine it even brighter, that's incoherent and insane. And we already have. You can't beat incoherent and insane with incoherent and insane. That's actually in the gospel. But I don't know. We got a lot. No matter what happens. The point being, no matter what happens in this election, we got lots of work to do.
Number one, stories like yours, Aaron, are why the devil is shooting at Donald Trump and not our pastors. Because for all of his frailties and brokenness, he is way more of a threat to hell than an overwhelming majority of the men in our pulpit, including the ones at your church. I'd never set foot in that church ever again. Never again. Never would go back. Number two, the worst and harshest punishment that God gave to his covenant people, Israel, was in direct result. I mean, Jeremiah says this in the opening chapters of his letter. You went down into the valley of Topeth. That is an ancient word for hell, by the way. He's talking about the valley of Ben Hinnom. And he is comparing what they did there to hell. He's comparing it, Jeremiah the prophet is comparing it to hell. You went down into the valley of Topeth, and you threw your babies into the fire to Molech, the demon. One of the 7 deadly sins, 6 things the Lord hates. I believe number 1, Todd, is it not? Hands that shed innocent blood. The prophet Ezekiel is told about the watchmen on the wall, those who were given the charge of warning the people about their sin and then did not fulfill that charge, and that they will be punished by God as if they had committed those sins themselves. There's 2 reasons this has occurred, and this is occurring in our churches. Number 1 is just flat out cowardice. And it's a vile, disgusting level of cowardice. You should be revolted by it. Like, I don't know how you could possibly look those men in the eye ever again. I don't know how you could take them seriously ever again. I don't know how you could sit under their preaching as they assumed a pulpit ever again. I don't. The other is theological. There is an inversion of the two greatest commandments in much of the American evangelical church today. Well, first of all, let me take a step back before I even address that. If we won't tell them killing their children is wrong, how do they know they're lost? Do you guys have an answer to that? Like, if we can't alter the weather, why are we spending gazillions of dollars fighting climate change to alter the weather? Likewise, how would they know they were lost unless they know they're lost? Do you guys know how you would know you're lost? You're lost from what? What are you lost from? Do you know?
Here's an example that came to my head. So Ben was punching his baby sister the other day. Obviously, terrible behavior. Okay. So I went over to Ben and I said, Ben, you did a really good job using your spoon and fork at supper last night. And that fixed the problem, right?
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
He wasn't actually hitting his sister. Just I got the analogy. I made that story up so everyone knows.
Yes. I mean, I don't know what are they lost from?
How do you confront without confronting?
What is evil, yeah. I mean, how do they know they're lost? All you're telling us is, like many American evangelical churches, there's a bunch of false converts there. That's all you're telling us. I don't know what you think what do you need saved from? This goes back to the conversation we had yesterday about before we even get into the argument on how far does predestination go, and Augustine and Calvin had different debates on that, or does foreknowledge mean there's something completely different? That's the Arminian position. Before we even have those arguments, we have to kick Pelagius out of the church first. You're in a Pelagian church. Human nature is basically good. Can't risk offending it. I mean, if the church doesn't just tell me what is good and what is evil, how do I know that I'm lost? If you don't show me a map of where I'm supposed to go, how would I know I'm lost? If I don't have a compass that points me in the right direction, how would I know that I'm lost? How does anybody know they're lost? And aside from the cowardice, there has been some form of theological inversion of what Jesus says are the two greatest commandments. And he says these two commandments sum up the whole of the law and the prophets. Number 1, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. Number 2, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And he's pointing to the 10 commandments. The first 5, the first tablet of the 10 commandments are vertical. And they speak to the relationship that we have between us and God. Don't take his name in vain. Don't worship other gods, etc., etc. The second tablet that Moses comes down the mountain with is horizontal, how we relate to one another, what it means to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Don't murder your neighbor. Don't steal from your neighbor. Don't bear false witness against your neighbor. Don't be jealous of your neighbor. Don't take your neighbor's spouse and commit adultery. What we have done in the modern American church is, if we're not being cowards, and that's the majority of it, which is why we wanted to address that first. The majority of it is just manginas abound. That's the majority of it, okay? But there has also been a theological inversion now, where now it is worse to offend our neighbor than it is to offend God. Love your neighbor as you love yourself now is the greatest commandment. And now God now must take a back seat to your neighbor. And that same powerless God apparently could find no other means by which to call or woo your lost neighbor who's been offended to salvation if you end up offending him.
This is such an important point, because this is how the devil works. Yeah, all that he does is pervert good things.
Amen.
Ultimately, what you just said. Look at here. You're talking about the two greatest things, the two greatest commandments, and here he just does the shell game, and he goes like this. It's such an important point you're making, Steve.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that.
Because now you put your relationship with people ahead of God. And you can't put anything ahead of your relationship with God. You simply cannot. And Jesus was very clear about this. Even a man's own household will be divided because of me. Do not think I came to bring peace, but a sword. And it's not a coincidence that the inversion of these two greatest commandments also provides you the means to live a nice, comfortable life as a pastor in the suburbs. You've heard me say before, the problem with America's pastors is no one really wants to murder them. No one really wants to arrest them. They don't offend anybody. And that's the biggest problem that America has, more than anything else, is that. For how will they hear the word if there is no one to preach it to them? Do you love me? Yes, Lord. Do you love me? Yes, Lord. Do you love me? You know I do. Yes, Lord. Then feed my sheep. Preach the word in season and out of season, because it's never out of season. And this is where now we don't have disciples. We have customers. We don't have elders. We have boards of directors. These are where you, Aaron, you go. You don't go to a church. You go to a corporation with Bible verses. That's where you work. You're right to use the word work. You don't serve there. You work. It's a corporation with Bible verses. And that's what the majority of these suburban megapolises that we have all throughout the fruited plain, that's what a majority of them are. They are corporations with Bible verses. These are not sinners in need of salvation and discipling. They're would-be customers, and the customer's always right, and we don't want to drive them off. How many times in the Gospels, no one in the Bible preaches more and more specifically about hell than Christ does. No one does. And yet, how many times in the Gospels, when someone rejects him or turns away, does Jesus chase after that person? Do you guys know the answer? Big fat goose egg. 0. Same amount of times Lindsey Graham's had sex with a woman. 0. None. Absolutely none. Not a one. Totally different model than how church is practiced in much of America today, which is why America sucks and is sucking worse and is about to get sucked into the ash heap of history. This is why. This is the number one problem in this country, is right here. The number one problem. The men in the pulpit are the number one problem, or the lack thereof. I am sure I could do an entire show of these kinds of stories, maybe even more than one. And here's the thing that I know that's also going to happen too, and I'm sympathetic to this. When I say you can't ever go back to a church like that again, a lot of you are like, well, I don't know where else to go. There's not a lot of options, unfortunately. There aren't. You know, we keep it real here on this show. I go to a church right now that I'm still not even sure where I stand on some of the church's own practices, frankly. Why do I go there? Because the most important thing to me right now is that I have a pastor that will actually fight. I'll overlook some of the other disagreements. I don't think I have the luxury of some of the disagreements I have with him and their practices, frankly. We're in survival mode. So I will put my own preferences and positions aside because our convictions are the same. So I understand the laws of supply and demand aren't working out too well for the American church at the moment. And that's, again, why the hell is shooting at Donald Trump and not your pastors. I understand that. I get that. So I'm sympathetic to it. I truly am. There's not a lot of options out there. There really isn't. Which is why when you have one, man, cling to it and serve that church and do everything you can, man, to edify it, because it is rare. And this is why the traits that made this the greatest country on earth now are increasingly rare as well. This is why rewarding marriages are increasingly rare as well. This stuff doesn't come from a vacuum, and it doesn't come from mere philosophy. This is the stuff of revelation. And someone has to reveal it to us. We will not know it instinctively. Pelagius was wrong. We're sinners. Even if we are seeking after something, we don't even truly understand what it is we're seeking after. Without the church, there's no hope for any culture. And how do I know that? Cultures come and go. What has stood the test of time? The church has. So that is the lighthouse. That is as constant as the North Star, Mr. Shakespeare. And watch the abortion amendment vote in Missouri very closely. It's one of the highest per capita Gen Pop church-going populations in America. Watch that state very carefully. Be prepared to be disappointed here in about 19, 20 days. All those churches, all those people go to. Are they aligning together? Are they coordinating together? Are they messaging together? How many of them are doing it at all? And here's the thing too that's really damning about this, and here's the thing that's really confirming too. Okay? It doesn't require you to spend an ounce of energy or take on a scintilla of baggage like supporting Donald Trump does to oppose this. These are straight up referendums. You don't have to get behind a party or a candidate. You don't have to take on anybody's branding or baggage. You don't have to apologize or look the other way. Okay? And by the way, you don't have to do that anyway. There's a clip going around of a pastor that I had never seen before. In 5 minutes, does the best job doing a political hermeneutic I've ever heard. All the way, but watch it all the way through, though, because not everybody's going to like everything he has to say. But he's right. And he did it in 5 minutes. So that's a false choice, too. But ultimately, these are just straight up referendums. I mean, tell me who wants to go to, tell me what true seeker, what true lost person believes they will be found in a building that has no answers and is no form of opposition to obvious evil. Tell me then. The other day we were yesterday we were talking to the priest, and I pointed out an observation I've made many times before about how one of the true under the radar inflection points for me about we are in trouble as a culture was the movie Paranormal Activity. It's the first time I can remember a wide release successful film from Hollywood dealing with supernatural elements and demonic possession that no figure from the church was called in to save the day. And even worse, the church doesn't even exist. It wasn't like they were mocking the church even. That would be a compliment. In this universe, there's no such thing as the church. The only thing that's transcendent is dark. Well, let me tell you, because of stories like Aaron's, and they are legion, that film was prophetic. Church is not in the battle. It's disinterested. Can't be bothered. It's got lawns to mow. It's got empty mausoleums on a Tuesday afternoon to dust and clean and make look like your local Pottery Barn. Yeah. I escaped my human trafficker. I'm on the run. I don't know where to turn. That's exactly where I would go. To a giant antibacterial wipe in the suburbs. That would make me think they'll just let me in, and that'll be a safe haven. Wouldn't you guys? That's where you would go, right, guys? I escaped my human trafficking kidnappers, and so now I'm at the first. Let me run into the first church of non-confrontation. I think I'd be welcome there. I think they'd defend me there. I think they would. I mean, they give that absolutely gives off a vibe of sanctuary, protection, defense, redemption. No, it's a bleeping shopping mall. Utterly revolting and disgusting. Spit that lukewarm out of your mouth. Unfortunately, though, very typical.
Yeah, all these
and abundant.
A lot of these churches make the mistake, and even if they started off, road to hell paved with good intentions, though, that people brought out of darkness and chaos the antidote: peace, quiet, not rocking the boat. The Pottery Barn that you're talking about, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. That chaos, that noise, you need its opposite. You don't need an absence. You need an opposite. You need to be brought in to a rock concert of truth and beauty and justice. And it doesn't just let you be peaceful in quiet, because that's not it. We talked about peace last week. That's that real peace is just like, again, moving on, being tested, just seeing a new reality day after day after day that we couldn't have possibly imagined. That's a real church. Just slaying demons everywhere.
Yep.
Not just sitting there comatose. It's which not coincidentally is why when you talk about the layers of hell, once you get down to the devil, and he's frozen in who am I? What? The great novel.
He's encased in ice, right?
Yeah, the great Italian. Why am I? You know who I'm talking.
You're thinking
Dante. Excuse me, Dante.
Dante's
obviously.
Inferno. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at the church is actually mimicking just frozen, ossified. Just sit there. Just be still. Just meditate. No, go out and live. The church is supposed to be painting the picture of real life, heaven on earth as it is in heaven. We're getting it totally wrong.
Aside from that, though, it's just stupid. Who is the person that's going to walk into your church seeking, like actually seeking with a possibility of turning around regenerated, who's just going to see a sign like that and say, oh, I want nothing to do with that? Name me that person. Paint that picture. It's just stupid.
It's bad theology and or cowardice. Other than that, it has a wonderful singing voice. Back here on the Steve Deace Show, we're brought to you by our friends over at Patriot Mobile. They are on the vanguard of helping to build the parallel economy. And if you want to make the switch today, and you do, because if they've got a fantastic U.S.-based customer service team, they'll customize everything for you. You can keep your number, switch your number, upgrade your phone, keep your phone, whatever you want to do. And you'll get the exact same great coverage and network from all the big communist corporations without having to give them your money anymore. You can give it to Patriot Mobile instead, who then turns around and reinvests right back into the same values that we're trying to defend here on shows like this and you're fighting for in your way of life. If you make the switch today at patriotmobile.com/Steve with the offer code Steve, they'll give you a free month of service to get you started. A free month of service to get you started today at patriotmobile.com/Steve and use the offer code Steve for that free month of service. And by the way, anytime you have to switch networks once you're a member of Patriot Mobile, they have access to 3 major networks. You need to switch at any point in time for any reason. They'll do that for you for free. All right. So again, patriotmobile.com/Steve. Use the offer code Steve to get started with a free month of service if you make the switch today. Also, I want to remind you, we've started a brand new subscription product here at The Blaze. It's called Blaze Unlimited as part of the launch of our new Frontier magazine, which is a fantastic publication with debut articles from Glenn Beck, Mark Levin, Chris Rufo, and more. And this is about now partnering even more intimately and directly with us here at The Blaze. This is another step in helping us to fight back against state-run media. So as a founding member of Blaze Unlimited, you'll receive a limited edition founding members card, even more behind-the-scenes content, VIP event access, and more. All right, so if you want to take that plunge with us today, go to blazeunlimited.com/Deace to claim your spot. blazeunlimited.com/Deace. Again, head over to blazeunlimited.com/Deace. All right, you guys ready for some more Feedback Friday?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, this is from Brian. Brian says, I've been watching you guys for 4 years now, and I've greatly appreciated your thorough investigation of the COVID jab and related medical incidents. I'm writing to get a refresher and pointed in the right direction regarding children's vaccines. My wife and I have a 2.5-month-old who is yet to be vaccinated. Before he was born, we discussed what we would do regarding these vaccines, but we never landed on a decision, just somewhere between delayed and none. I remember Aaron mentioning he has done a delayed schedule. Which one and why did he pick that one? I believe Todd has mentioned none of his girls are. I asked the same questions to him. Why? Currently, I think I'm leaning towards giving our son the shots for the most deadly diseases and leaving the rest out. But I would appreciate your input and where I could get information on childhood vaccine side effects, effective delayed schedules, death rates per disease, etc. Greatly appreciate all the work you guys do. That is from Brian.
Yeah, you need to pick up the book called The Vaccine-Friendly Plan by Dr. Paul Thomas and Jennifer Margulis, I should say. The Vaccine-Friendly Plan. That's on Amazon. We have done and are doing a very delayed and not comprehensive schedule, meaning all of everything that the CDC wants you, which is like 500 different shots in the first month of life. I'm exaggerating, but it's basically somewhere along there. Very delayed plan. The bottom line is you need to educate yourself. This book helps you do that. And then you need to make the decision. You need to make the decision of what's going to be right for your family. Maybe it's none. Maybe it's some. So that's kind of where we fall right now.
Give the name of that book one more time.
The Vaccine-Friendly Plan by Dr. Paul Thomas. And he is a doctor who has put his career on the line to help families navigate this issue.
Sounds like somebody we need to have on the show. I'd not heard of this one before. Okay. Todd, I know you've got thoughts on this too, obviously. Go ahead.
Well, I haven't read it yet, but a lot of people have told me that it's been very helpful. Turtles all the way down in this regard. But as you, right now, the premises you seem to have winnowed yourself down to, I suggest doing... Instead of worrying about the vaccination per se, think about the premises that you just laid out for yourself. I'm thinking of doing it for, how do you say it, the most dangerous, Aaron? The most deadly. I think that's how you put it, the most deadly. Well, first ask yourself, even if they are theoretically the most deadly, they might be the least likely that you're going to get. So already... I'd question how you're approaching this. And then number two, how a lot has changed in the last century. Deadly to whom? How would you catch this? By what means? And especially with vaccine shedding, a lot of the most prevalent diseases are the ones you get from the vaccine strain itself. So sanitation, diet, hygiene, there's all manner of things that... The thing that, yes, you don't want that. It would be bad. It would be deadly. Are you going to get it? How would you get it? Our mind has become, amazingly, we have all these comforts that are in place that anesthetize us. And one way it's weird is like somehow, though, that like Ebola is like right there and it's going to get you. Now, granted, Fauci and the Chinese may make that happen. That might be true. But in terms of how things had been going before COVID, the natural state of things, I think you really need to investigate the premise you're operating on, because it might actually take you in the exact opposite direction that you think, my direction, and that you shouldn't be taking any of these.
All right. Drew writes.
And
Go ahead, Todd.
add to
Aaron,
that.
I'm sorry.
I'd add to that as well. You might do a delayed schedule, an uncomprehensive schedule. You still need to leave yourself open, and we are as well, that you might come to a point where nope. So don't box yourself into any corner. Certainly not the corner of we're going to follow the CDC schedule to a T. That's the one thing I would say, I would reject that. Not being a doctor, but just given everything that we've seen over the last few years, don't box yourself into a corner.
Yeah, we haven't had to make these decisions for nearly 20 years now. Our youngest is going to be 18 in a few months. But even back then, before I knew what a Todd Erzen was, I didn't even know what anti-vax meant. Amy and I, even back in those days, and we did the same thing with Anna, Zoe, and Noah. The same thing with their siblings. We started with Anastasia. We just gave we consented to the vaccine regimen that we were given when we were growing up, which I think was like 17. I think is what it was, Todd, that K through 12. Was that the number when we were kids? And now it's like 89 roughly, or something?
It's in the teens, yes, okay. Correct.
Yeah. So we consented to those in their childhoods, but then nothing beyond that. And we did that just instinctively, just wondering, why do we need that many more given, that was fine for us. We were just suspicious of that number at the time 20 years ago, let alone now even asking for nearly 80 and after what we all just witnessed with the COVID shots at the same time. So you're asking the right questions, brother, for sure. And again, I know it sucks that our institutions cannot be trusted and we have to do this level of work on top of all the other work we have to do, but we do. And so thank you for being willing to do it. Drew writes, I heard all the reports of FEMA obstructing help to little mountain towns such as I reside in. I didn't know for sure. I was part of a 3 pickup truck convoy that set out last Saturday to deliver requested supplies that a local contact of mine had managed to gather from his fire department in Pensacola, North Carolina. It was a treacherous ride across the mountains with most ATVs running on these roads. When we reached our destination about 2.5 hours later, it looked like a war zone. Civilian helicopter pilots with search dogs flying inland out of this lone road with a population of 500. Multiple ex-military volunteers strapped with AR-15 sidearms and a can-do attitude. I was approached by a volunteer as we were waiting to contact those in charge of the hub, explained the supplies we had, and was directed to back around the building, and the National Guard there helped me to unload. After meeting back up with my group, I advised them my wife and I were unloaded, and the 2 others pulled around to do the same. By this point, the FEMA he-she boss had finally arrived. The doors were closed and donations, including a truck full of generators and blankets, were refused. We continued across the mountain with ATVs to Burnsville, where a local church was set up there as a hub. Now, keep in mind, it took days for a path to be made for help and supplies such as ours to even arrive in the first place. The hubs were just starting to be able to receive donors, and volunteers arrived to give aid to the forgotten towns, though the National Guard and others had quickly obtained great organization of the supplies. Things were tense when we headed on. When we moved on. Winter is soon approaching, and everyone there seems to understand the urgency, except the federal government, or maybe they do. And that's the point. That is from Drew. So what do you guys think about this? There's been plenty of things debunked that aren't true, okay? But about, are they confiscating land and all this other stuff? Nevertheless, there are also a lot of very troubling stories out there that, at the very least, even if motivations are not sinister here, effectiveness is lacking thereof. What do you think?
I keep wondering to myself, what is the point of FEMA? Have we ever talked about FEMA in your career in a positive light?
No.
No. Or, you could say that about basically any non-military.
I was just going to say, though, how many non-military
days,
government programs do we discuss positively? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll say it, and this is not the position of the show. Maybe it is, but this is just my position. The only reason why I have even brought up the lack of response or the mishandled response from the federal government to this crisis is because I remember I was barely 10, 11 years old when Katrina came through, and they just freaking bludgeoned George W. Bush, unfairly so. And he took, the dude mishandled the, not the crisis itself, but the response to it. He completely bungled that, completely fell for every canard and every premise that was thrown out there. That's the only reason why I'm even mentioning this, is because, okay, I guess this is fair game now. Because it seems like the only stories that I've heard out of North Carolina that are positive as you can be in the aftermath of such devastation aren't happening because of the federal government or FEMA. It's people helping people. We just had Jill Savage on the program who saw with her own eyes last week and said very much the same thing. So I don't think people and I don't think I completely understand just how much rebuilding and how long this is going to take. I mean, the pictures, the before and after pictures that I've seen, this is beyond a war zone in some of these cases. I think it's I-40, just a half of that interstate completely washed out. So I continue to lift these people up in your prayers, but any recovery and rebuilding that's going to take place is going to be in spite of the federal government, not because of it.
This is another failure akin to what I've told you before, Marvin Olansky, the tragedy of American compassion, where all of the duties and responsibilities of the church, again, through road to hell paved with good intentions, yet again, okay, well, how can we make this more efficient? And so we increasingly pass things off to the government until the whole job becomes that of the government. And then the church is just over there doing the Pottery Barn thing, like Steve just said. There's no way that FEMA can come in. It should be the men are the National Guard here. The men are the volunteer fire department working for FEMA or not. They're like, there's no way FEMA can do the job it's called to do, even close to as good as possible, unless they use the talent of the men there that are ready, willing, and able to go. But they resent it. Once again, because you've fractured the entire relationship of who we are as citizens and how we're supposed to relate to our government on a regular basis. So whether it's a tornado or an earthquake or a flood or a hurricane or just going down to the school board, it's all broken. It's all broken.
Let's close with this from Holly. I'm writing to ask for some advice how to get through to my normie husband. I've been interested and passionate about the history of our nation, government, and the political realm for as long as I can remember. Over the years, I've spoken against DEI at local school board meetings, attended Republican conventions, caucuses, and primaries, been an election judge. My husband's political participation has been limited to him voting in elections every 2 to 4 years and generally asking me who I think he should vote for. He considers himself a conservative, but truly I don't know if he would even vote if we had never gotten married. Recently, we had a huge fight about me wanting to put a Trump sign in our yard. We have had fights like this nature off and on since COVID. Him just wanting to get along with the mask mandates, me rebelling against it, just another example. He told me that he didn't care if I put it out, but then later told me that he thought I was just putting it out because I wanted to make other people mad. He also voiced concern that putting a Trump sign would make our house a target for crazy people. I asked him if he thought our neighbors put out a Biden sign, would he assume that they just wanted to make people in our mostly conservative neighborhood mad? He didn't really answer me. I tried to explain to him that courage can be contagious, and maybe by putting a sign out, it might encourage others who support Trump but are afraid to voice it. He said he didn't think that that even mattered since they secretly already supported Trump anyway. Before the assassination attempt, I was considering not even voting in this election. However, when I saw him nearly get killed and get up and pump his fist in the air and scream out, fight, 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 that changed something in me. I'll definitely be voting for him in November, and I want to publicly support him for president. How do I get through to my husband that these things matter? How do I wake him up to what time it is? Thank you for any advice that you may have. I also want everybody to know I could do a note like this every week. A variation of this theme every single week.
Specifically the wives with the husbands?
Yes, the wives of the husbands. Every single week I could do this kind of a note. Every week. Yep. And the number one reason why? Because of the note from Erin and the church she works out that we read here at the top of the show. That's the number one reason why. I've given every form of advice I can, but I've got a new one for Holly. Then I'll hand it over to you guys. We got about a minute left. There is a new Kamala Harris, Tim Walz TikTok ad out trying to appeal to men. I just play that for your husband, Holly. If that doesn't work, then I guess I just don't know what to do at that point. Okay. Because that is one of the cringiest, most emasculating things I've witnessed in my entire life unintentionally. So Go find that ad, play it for him. What did you call it, Aaron, before the break? What did you call it?
Hairless Balls 2024.
Yes. Go find that ad, that TikTok ad, trying to appeal to men. Play it for him. And if that doesn't get you an all hell no response from your hubby, then I at that point, I don't know what to do. Do you guys have any thoughts?
Well, the first question I would have to ask is which kind of guy is he? Is he basically have fallen into I don't believe in anything, and that he really is not passionate on any level about anything, and including this? Because that's one kind of problem. Or you have a husband, and I comment on this kind of guy a lot, who's very, very passionate about some very trivial, nonsensical things that are just supposed to be the dessert of life, but he's made it his whole existence. And if that's that guy, it's a different kind of a problem.
Teach him the newest hymn on the Indianapolis Colts. I think that's our recommendation, right?
Yeah, this guy is either Hamish from Hunger Games, where you're just kind of a drunk in a drunk stupor all the time and just kind of casting stones, or he might be, Frito from Idiocracy, Not Now, Baton. Yep. I don't know what to say. I would need a little bit more information.
Pray, in all seriousness, pray for your husband a lot. Romans 8:28.